So on a normal 1054 or 953, this is where the hydraulic pump mounts. And it mounts with 4 bolts, and that's the tensioner. And there's an interior belt on the engine just for the pump, and then an exterior belt that runs to the transmission input. So I can utilize some of these holes maybe to build a tab to hold that bracket in place. Now, I'm not so worried about depth right now, just the design of my bracket. Now, it's not very often that I use cardboard aided design, but this is pretty much what I'm thinking for a bracket. It'll probably get a gusset here so it can stay 90 degrees, but I'm going to keep it close to the inside as I can. Obviously, I need to have room for clearance for those bolt heads and everything else. So it'll move over a little bit, maybe a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch. But that's all I need. Now, I'll end up just putting holes in this tab instead of slots. And then I'm going to build a little gusset, like I say, and then I'll just clamp it to this piece and transfer my holes there. So that way everything is going to be good and stout. I wanted to keep this bracket as close to the wall as possible so there's no twisting or lateral movements. It's good and stout. Well, I just tacked something up real quick, and as soon as it cools, I'll transfer the holes and get it bolted on. All right, so now I've got it clamped to the sidewall. I've got this vice grip clamping on the bracket, and I can spin the rotor and I can lift this up and it stops. So I know I have clearance everywhere I need clearance. I know once I transfer all my holes, everything's going to function just right. I really couldn't have planned the length of that keyway any better when I cut it about 20 years ago. It's been just sitting in my toolbox waiting for me to use it. I think what I'm going to end up doing is welding that sprocket. And I'm going to have to locate it, obviously. But if I'm going to weld that sprocket, I want this shaft to be somewhat serviceable. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is notching this piece so this shaft can just lift out on this side only. So that way, that sprocket will be able to fish through that hole if I ever need to take it out. And then that bearing over there is just removable. So I'm going to take this shaft off. I'm going to cut that little notch right there and then put it all back together and get my brakes finished up. I also decided just to weld that tab on the brake caliper bracket instead of bolting it. It's just one more thing that won't be able to move, and it doesn't look like they ever really changed that design. That's a pretty common brake, so now I just have that piece as part of the tractor. So I machined the teeth off, and I also trued this up to the shaft. So I just need to hone the edge of this one, this side right here, and then I will have a brake disc. All right, well, I chucked it up on the lathe after I welded it and just cleaned everything up, made it look like an actual brake rotor. I wanted to get rid of those teeth just for safety reasons, and I thought if I could make this thing as true as possible, it'd probably be the best at balance, you know. I also got that slot done, so I can just push that right on through, drop it in, and boom, there it is. All right, now since the brake caliper bracket is welded to this is bolted in, I can spin this, and if I lift up on that, it locks that right solid. So that's all I need to hook a linkage up to, and I've got brakes. Check that one off the list.